so let's get started. There we go. Okay, so these are just some little helpful hints for turn that off. Okay, for the meeting. So during the presentation, we have the chat feature. So you can type in your questions about the slide that we're currently on, and we have other counselors who are going to be monitoring the chat, and they can answer your questions in real time. Keep in mind that what you ask in the chat is going to be able to be viewed by other attendees. And if at any point you ask a question and it doesn't get answered, we will also have Q&A at the end to allow y'all to ask any questions that you may have that we didn't address. And like I said, this presentation is being recorded and it will be posted on the counseling website within a few days. Okay, so just a reminder about who is in our counseling department and who your counselor is going to be. So we base our caseload on last names. So Mrs. Chilson is going to be your counselor. If, let me see, I just was asked to turn the volume up. Mrs. Chilson is going to be your counselor if you have last names A through DAQ. Mrs. Johnson, who is also our department chair and head counselor, she will be your counselor if your last names are DAR through H. Mrs. Turner, will be your counselor with last names I through MAR. Mrs. Blunt, who is presenting with me, she will be your counselor, last names MAS through SAH. And then finally, Mrs. Jones will be your counselor with last names SAI through Z. We also have a lot of other support staff in the counseling office who are instrumental and are so helpful in making sure that the counseling office runs smoothly. And you can check out the counseling webpage for all of the other supporting staff and what they do and how they can help. These are just some reminders of how you can stay connected. So every other Friday, you are going to be getting the Hooch Happenings email blast. That's going to have a lot of great information about things that are going on at the counseling office, as well as things that are happening school-wide. So that's a great thing to make sure that you are reading when it comes through your email on Friday afternoons, typically. Then you can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Chattahoochee High School. You can also follow us on Twitter. There is the Chattahoochee main website, which you can go to, and then you can also from there get to the counseling specific page. And then we also have the dual enrollment information Weebly that Mrs. Chilson has created. And that just gives you all the information that you could want to know about dual enrollment. So that is a great resource as well if you have questions for dual enrollment. All right, so here is our agenda for tonight. So we're going to start with Infinite Campus, and then we're going to go through and we're going to end with what are your next steps for your 9th and 10th grader and how we can help you. So let's jump right in with Infinite Campus. So Infinite Campus is the portal that we use here that allows you, the parent, and the student to view up-to-date information about grades, attendance. This is where you would also download an official transcript. And it also just gives you a more secure line and link to any school records that you may want. This is going to be especially important when I know when students need to get permits, or if you are going to be able to get a good student discount through insurance companies, this is where you could download the unofficial transcript. Those are just some examples of what you could use that for. Every 4.5, 9, and 13.5 weeks are going to have progress reports, as well as at the end of the first semester, there's going to be a report card. These are not sent home with students. This is something that you will only view in Infinite Campus. And you can always, in between those 4.5 and 9 and 13.5 week progress reports, you can log in to Infinite Campus on the parent portal and just keep track of where your student is. See if they're missing anything, if they need to do recovery on a test. That just kind of helps you stay in the loop with what's going on with your student and in each of their classes. So for a student, when they log in, their login is going to be their student ID, and then their default password is their 8-digit birthday. 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year. Students are prompted to change their password periodically. And at that point, they will be able to choose their own password and they don't have to have it be the default of their birthday. I believe we just changed our passwords, I think last week. So your student should have already changed their password. And then if you haven't set up your parent account, please go to the fultonschools.org/Infinite Campus, and more info can be found there about how to do the parent account and just Infinite Campus in general and all of the tools and things that you can find to help you and your student. All right, so next let's talk about graduation requirements, because there's a lot of them. Okay, so the biggest thing you want to remember about high school is it is all about how many credits you have earned. So a student, by the time they are graduating in their senior year, they have to have 23 credits. Now, those 23 credits have to also be in specific areas. So for example, you have to have 4 credits in English, 4 credits in math, 4 credits in science, 3 credits in social studies. We need to have 3 credits in either career tech, fine art, or world language. We have to have 4 credits of electives, and then we need to have 1 total credit of health and personal fitness. So on this screen, you can see we've listed all of the different options that we have for each of these areas. So for example, with English, a student can be in 9th Lit, or they can be in 9th Lit Honors, 10th Lit, or there's AP Seminar ELA, 11th Lit Honors, AP Lang. Like there are lots of different options and ways that we can get your student to those 23 credits that are needed and making sure that they hit all of the requirements. And that is something that we as counselors, we are going to help you and your student throughout the entire course of them being in high school. We're going to make sure that they stay on track. And we're going to make sure that we are taking the right things, that we're placed correctly. And that's just we're going to help advise you and your student, as well as their teachers. With health and personal fitness, if you have a student who is an athlete, or a student who has taken, this year they have taken rec games, they can fill out the personal fitness waiver, which essentially is saying, okay, I have already either played this sport for a season, or I have taken this class and have completed this credit, and they are asking to be waived out of having to do the actual personal fitness class. If a student waives out of the personal fitness class, it just means that we would replace that with another 1 semester elective. And most students, by the time we get to when you need to graduate, you're going to have more than 23 credits. So it's typically not an issue with having to replace that personal fitness class. Math has changed a little bit this year with the classes and the tracks that students can do. The regular track is going to be that student does algebra, concepts and connections in 9th grade, then geometry in 10th, advanced algebra in 11th, and then either pre-calculus, a dual enrollment, or advanced math decision making. That's going to be kind of the regular track for a student in math. Then we have the honors track, where this is for if a student has maybe taken that algebra honors class in 8th grade and has earned that high school credit. So then they get to come into high school being a year ahead of math. So then that means as a 9th grader, you're going to be taking geometry honors instead of algebra. And then the honors enhanced track in math is, again, your student has probably taken that algebra honors in 8th grade. And then in 9th grade, we're going to do the geometry honors. And then this is where it gets into that enhanced, because in 10th grade, they potentially could take the enhanced advanced algebra and AP pre-calculus class. That is essentially 2 years of math. So it's that advanced algebra and that AP pre-calculus, but they're taking it in 1 year. So it is going to be, and that's a new class this year. So it is, it's going to be very fast paced. There's going to be a lot of information. So that is going to be for our students who, maybe really excel in math and really enjoy math, and they want to, take as much as they can. This is also typically going to be the track for students who want to apply to do Georgia Tech distance math. That is a program that students can apply to, and if they are accepted and they have done the prerequisites and have the grades, that they can do the Georgia Tech distance math. And Mrs. Chilson will be talking more about that on the dual enrollment information night that we are having next Thursday. So she will be able to talk more about the dual enrollment and Georgia Tech. Then with science, we're going to have every student has to take a biology, whether that be on level or honors. Every student has to take either environmental science, earth systems, or chemistry. And then every student needs to take physics. So that 4th credit of science is a science class that your student is going to be able to take. So if your student wants to take forensic science, for example, or any AP science, they have to have taken chemistry before they will be able to take that forensics, zoology, or an AP science class. So that's something to think about with your student of if they think they want to take AP bio, for example, then we know they're going to have to do chemistry before they're going to be able to do that AP class. Social studies, we have every student has to take American government, and that's only a 1 semester class, typically taken freshman year. Then we have world history, US history, and then economics is typically taken in your senior year, and that is also usually only 1 semester unless you do AP. And that's true for American government. If your student is taking American government, it will be a year-long class. If your student is taking AP microeconomics and then AP macroeconomics, that will also be a year-long class. And then we have AP World and AP US. With world history and with US history, and actually with all of them, there are no honors. It's just you are either taking on level or you are doing AP. So there's not that middle honors level that we have for a lot of our other classes. Then for the career tech, fine arts, and world language, any combination of these 3 can be done. So it doesn't have to only be world language or only fine arts. So if your student, though, is thinking that a 4-year college is potentially in their future and they're thinking that's what they want to do, we do want you to take note that while 2 years of a world language isn't needed for graduation, it is needed for admission into most 4-year colleges. They want to see that a student has had 2 years of the same world language. So that means Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. You can't mix and match. So it can't say, I took Spanish 1 and I took French 1. That won't work. It has to be the same world language. And then electives, that is going to be 4 courses of your student's choice. So that can be, if they want to do another fine art as an elective, that's totally fine. They can do career tech. That's when, another dual enrollment class can come into play. So there are lots of different options for electives. And that's something that, again, your counselor will be able to talk through with you and your child if and when you have questions about the elective options that are out there. Okay. So this is just a good screen for giving you an idea of kind of laying it all out and showing, okay, this is the 4-year course plan. This is what it looks like. Every year you can see a student is going to need to take English, math, science, and social studies. And then those other 2 spots in their schedule, that's where we're going to fit in either the world language or a career tech, fine art, an elective. That's what's going to fill up those spots. Okay, here is an example of a transcript of what you are going to see in Infinite Campus when you will find it under the Documents tab. So the transcript, this is an official record, and it's an official record of all grades that have been earned. So any class that your student has taken and they have earned high school credit, it's going to be also the cumulative numeric average. So that means every single class that your student has taken and has earned credit for is going to be averaged together. It's also going to be an official record of all of the courses that your student has taken, as well as the credit that they have earned. And that's going to be especially important when your student is a senior and they are applying to college, because this transcript is what colleges will receive. So it's really important that you and your student, periodically check your transcript. Make sure that all of your credits are on there, especially if you've done something in middle school or in summer school, making sure that those credits are on there, that your name is spelled correctly. Those are important things that we need to make sure are correct so that when you are applying to college, the information is accurate when we're sending it with your application. Something to keep in mind is the transcript. This record is permanent. So that means all grades that have been earned, both passing and failing, are going to be recorded. So that means that if your student fails a class and then they take it again in summer, that failed grade does not go away. It stays on their transcript. So that is just, that's an important thing to keep in mind when you are choosing classes, when you're looking at rigor, which Mrs. Blunt will talk about a little bit later in the presentation. But it's just important to keep in mind that in high school, everything that you take and every grade you earned is recorded on your transcript. So an official copy of the transcript is available to view and download on the student and parent portal in Infinite Campus, and it's going to be under the Documents tab. And if your student, can't find it or they need help, they're always welcome to make an appointment with their counselor or come in and, talk with Ms. Buenaventura, who is our professional assistant who sits in the office, and we will be able to help your student find where they can see their transcript. Okay, so again, because high school is all about credits, now we want to make sure that everyone understands how we earn credits, how many you need to be promoted, and then what to do if your student doesn't pass a class. So this is our grading scale at the top. So you can see an A is going to be any grade that's 90 or above. B is going to be 80 to 89. A C will be a 70 to 79. And then an F is anything below a 70. So if your student gets a 69, then that means that they got an F for that class, because Fulton County, we don't do Ds. We have A, B, C, and F. 7 additional points are added to a final grade if your student has a 70 or above in any honors, advanced placement, or dual enrollment class. So that means that if your student ended with an 89, but there was an honors class, then they're actually going to get a 96 because they will have those 7 additional points added. Each class is going to earn 0.5 credits per semester. The only exception to that is if your student is taking a dual enrollment class or is taking the ASP, which is the Accelerated Science Program. So that's for the students who in one semester, they're taking the full year of biology, and then in one semester, they're taking the full year of chemistry. So in those 2 instances, even though the class is only 1 semester, they are going to earn a full credit. Every other class, though, your student is only going to earn half a credit per semester. First semester ends in December, and second semester is going to end in May. So if your student fails a class, we have many ways that they can make it up. So the most popular is we probably are going to do it in summer school, and your counselor, again, will talk with you and your student about the options, because you can do it on Fulton Virtual, you can do it on Georgia Virtual potentially, or face-to-face summer school. We also have credit recovery, which is something that a student will be working on the class that they didn't pass in addition to the classes that they are currently taking. So with credit recovery, we want to just make sure that we don't overload the student. If they're struggling, we don't want to give another class on top of that, because we want to make sure that we're setting them up for success. An important thing to make note of is that credit recovery is not accepted by NCAA. So if you have a student athlete who is hoping to play college athletics, then credit recovery is not an option that we would go with. We would either do summer school, or we would put the class in the schedule for next year. Now, and then just a reminder, if a student fails the class and we retake the class and they pass, that new grade doesn't replace the failing grade. It is just in addition to. So that's, again, where all classes that have been attempted or have been earned credit are going to show up on the transcript. So let's talk about credits in terms of promotion. For your student to be promoted from 9th to 10th grade, they need to have earned 5 credits by the end of their 9th grade school year. Then to go from 10th to 11th grade, they need to have earned 11 credits. To move from 11th to 12th grade, they need to have 17. And then from 12th grade to graduate, they need to have those 23 credits. Now, let's say your 10th to 11th grader only earns 10 credits. So what that means is they will still move on to the next level of classes. So they will still move on to 11th grade classes. But they'll be credit deficient. So that just means that, okay, until we make up those credits that we are missing, we are going to keep taking the next year classes, but credit-wise, we're still going to be listed in the grade that we are in terms of credits. So again, if your student who is supposed to be going into 11th grade, but they only have 10 credits, they're still going to take 11th grade classes, but they're going to be listed in Infinite Campus as a 10th grader until we get to that point where we have enough credits and we can promote them. Another thing with athletes and credits too. So athletes must be on track for promotion, and they have to have passed 5 out of their 6 classes in the term prior to the sport to meet eligibility. So that means if you are baseball and you're wanting to play in the spring, you have to be on track for promotion, and you have to have passed 5 of your 6 classes in the fall. If you haven't done both of those things, you will not be eligible to play that sport. All right, so we're going to go over the scheduling timeline since we are just coming into the scheduling season so that you have an idea of what is going to be coming up next. So like I mentioned, next Thursday, we are going to have a dual enrollment presentation at 5:30 on Microsoft Teams. A link will be included in the Hooch Happening email blast. It is also going to be recorded and posted to that Weebly that I had talked about before within a couple days. This is important, and Mrs. Chilson again is going to go over in way more detail about dual enrollment. But keep in mind and mark this down that the deadline to complete all dual enrollment steps in Teams is going to be March 31st. So that's an important deadline to just be aware of. Then starting on February 12th through February 26th, counselors will meet individually with all of our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders through their English classes, and we are going to review their course recommendations that their teachers have said. They don't need to make an appointment because they're going to come with their English class, and every counselor is going to go through and say, okay, this is what your teacher recommended you take for math, and we're going to talk through everything, and again, make sure that they stay on track for graduation and they get the classes and the credits that they need. After we have met with your students individually in late February, early March, we are also going to have some 10-minute scheduling meetings that are going to be available for students and parents. If you still have questions about scheduling, if you still want to know more about AP, if you want to make sure about, summer classes and what can be taken, those are going to be meetings that you can schedule with your counselor, and parents, you can ask questions, and your student is welcome to be at that meeting as well, or it can just be with you. And that link is going to be available in February for you to make those appointments to have that conversation with your counselor. So again, here's that deadline, March 1st, March 1st, 2024 is the deadline for the online contract to be turned into counseling office for any student who wants to take a Fulton virtual or a Georgia virtual class during the 2024-2025 school year. So it's important that we get these contracts by this deadline because we need to make sure that we're building out a master schedule, and we have an accurate idea of how many students want to take, for example, world history on Fulton Virtual versus in the classroom here at Chattahoochee. Then we're expecting in early March, that is when registration is going to open for summer school. So for both face-to-face summer school as well as the virtual, so Fulton Virtual and Georgia Virtual. If you are taking a class in the summer, there is no contract that is needed. So that contract that I referenced that has the March 1st deadline, that is only for the next school year. So if your student wants to take a class in the summer, we don't need a contract for that. Information about summer school is going to be sent out via those email blasts that go out every other Friday. Students are going to register online, and then the counselors are going to check, and we're going to be approving those registrations. Again, if you or your student are having a hard time or you're not really sure what you're supposed to be registering for, your counselor is here to help you, and you can just send them an email and just ask. And we will also be in contact with you too to let you know, okay, Johnny needs to take this in the summer. How are we going to do it? It's offered face to face, and we can kind of help you navigate that. You can also go to this site down here that has more details about the 2024-2025 school year. It has all of the things about scheduling. So it's going to have information about course catalog, about the contract, about classes that a student would have to apply for. That would be an example, would be like yearbook. If your student wanted to be able to do yearbook, that's an application course. And there are things that they have to do to be able to take that class. So all of those information is on that website at that link. So that's just an idea roughly of what are some of the main things that are coming up with scheduling. So to just kind of reiterate, this is going to be an example of a typical 10th grade schedule. There's that English, we have the math, we have the science and the social studies, and then we have the world language or the career tech or the fine art elective, as well as the other elective. And then for a typical 11th grade schedule, again, there's that English, and then we have the math, we have that science, we have the US history, and then we have world language, career tech, fine art, and then we have that one credit of an elective. So those are, again, those are just sort of typical schedules. There are always going to be lots of variations depending on where your student is. If they are on that enhanced math track, for example, their math is maybe going to look different for 11th grade than another student who is just on the regular track. So this is just to give you an idea, but your student's schedule may look a little different than the one that is on the screen. All right, so next I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Blunt, and she is going to talk about things to consider when you are choosing courses with your student.
Okay, hey y'all, taking over. I'll let Miss Turner continue answering some of the questions in the chat because there's so many coming through. Okay. Things to consider when you're choosing your courses. And the reason we're addressing this right now is, like Mrs. Turner said, every single 9th, 10th, and 11th grader current student will be coming with their English class to the media center in just a couple weeks. The counselors will be meeting individually with every single student. If for some reason a 9th, 10th, 11th grader somehow does not have an English class, takes an English class online, or maybe 11th grader is taking an English class through dual enrollment, there will be designated days that we see those students as well. So rest assured, every single student will be seen. Okay, so planning going forward. Students cannot replace a graduation requirement with a non-required course without planning ahead. So the example we show here is if your student is currently in 10th grade, they want to take AP Psych next year, but they also want to keep their world language and maybe their band class, or maybe their world language and their career tech pathway class. You have to plan ahead and take one of your academic classes in the summer prior to the year the course is normally taken. So perfect example continuing is, a lot of students say, well, I want to delay world history, I want to take US history in 12th grade so I can make room for AP Psych. That's not how it works. US history is taken in the 11th grade. So if you want to replace US history with AP Psych, you have to take US history over the summer. US history in the summer is available through dual enrollment, and it's also available online through typical summer school. So Fulton Virtual or Georgia Virtual. So we have to keep courses in a certain sequence at the high school. World history is the typical 10th grade social studies class. US history is the typical 11th grade social studies class. So if you want to take one of those out to make room for something else, you have to plan ahead. If a student comes to us beginning of 11th grade, says, fills out a form, says they want to drop US history and take AP Psych, if they didn't plan ahead, that's not an option. They are welcome to plan for AP Psych in 12th grade, but we cannot do it that way. So do your research. What courses do you need for the colleges you want to attend? There are certain requirements out there. I answered in the chat a little bit earlier. Someone was asking, I thought 3 years of world language was the requirement typically for college admissions. Most colleges, 2 years of the same language is required. There are some more competitive colleges that want 3 years. And of course, the most competitive colleges, think Ivy Leagues, the elite private schools, that kind of thing, they might even want to see 4 years. So if you have a goal of, maybe being admitted to Harvard in the future, you might want to look at their admissions requirements and just see. There are some schools out there that want to see accredited fine arts. So a fine art here would be, it could be band, it could be orchestra, chorus, it could be intro to art, photography, guitar, piano, all those different things. I know a lot of schools in the University of California system. A lot of California schools do require fine arts. So if you have a goal of going to college in California, then you might want to do some research ahead of time and just see if that is a specific requirement. We prepare our students, because we are in Georgia, we prepare our students for Georgia college graduation requirements. Okay, this has been asked a number of ways in the chat about the levels of courses. There is no universal answer to give anyone that asks. It is a completely individual decision unique to every single student. We could be looking at 100 students and 100 schedules and 100 different transcripts, and we could have 100, literally, no kidding, 100 different answers of what would make sense for that student. Don't take a class just because a friend, someone in your class, someone that sits next to you says, oh, that's an easy class. What is easy to them may not be easy to you. It's good to challenge yourself in the areas that you're strong in, the areas that you have interest in. If I was not a social studies student, well, let me rephrase that. I was not a history student in high school. I love social studies, psychology and sociology, love it. Was not a history student in high school. I could have a friend sitting next to me saying, oh, AP US history is easy. Never in a billion years would I have ever taken AP US history. So you need to challenge yourself in your areas of strength. I loved math when I was in high school, so I took AP statistics. I did great. We encourage a gradual increase in rigor. We don't want to see students jumping from 1 to 4 AP classes. Sometimes even 1 to 3 is hard depending on the combination of the classes. So think through what makes sense for your student. And if I'm speaking to students, think through what makes sense for you. What really matters even more than, quote, taking AP classes is the grades you earn in them. If you're, I know, Georgia Tech, UG, there's the comment asked about colleges around here. While they do report average numbers of AP and dual enrollment classes that are taken by students that are admitted each year, what also goes into that kind of equation, if you will, is good grades. If you have 12 AP classes, but you have mostly C's and B's in there, that's not going to help. Less AP, but higher grades is going to help you better. So it's going to help you more. And then in subjects that offer honors options, we do always recommend the progression of on-level to honors and then honors to AP or dual enrollment. Some subjects don't offer honors, which would be the social studies. So it is possible for a student to go from on-level world history in 10th grade to AP US history in 11th grade. But again, it's all based on, the grades that they've earned in the current year. If a student is barely holding on to an 80 in an on-level class, while that does technically meet the district placement guidelines, that's typically not the student that I would say, yeah, I think AP is a great fit. And if you're killing it with an A or maybe even a really high B, and you're able to show that you manage your time wisely and you're doing all your homework and you're not relying on recovery, then yes, ramping up to a more difficult course for the next year definitely makes sense. Most of our students take a mix of on-level and honors and AP and dual enrollment. There's not a magic formula. Like I said previously, there's There's no just one equation, one mix of classes that is automatically going to get a student into any college. And like I said previously, and if there's anything I can stress, I think the most out of this entire presentation, for colleges that do report that average number of AP or dual enrollment classes that admitted students have taken, year to year, they do report that average. Those are also the schools that want to see strong grades. We often, every year, have students who have earned a large number of AP and dual enrollment classes and credits, but their grades are not in line with that. So parents will often ask, my kid took 10 AP classes. Well, why didn't they get in? Well, they didn't have the GPA that matched it. We want our students to be balanced. So we want students to consider your overall course load. When your teachers are entering their recommendations, they are entering them in silos. Your English teacher that may be recommending you for 11th Lit Honors next year doesn't know that maybe your science teacher is also recommending you for AP. And then your social studies teacher is also recommending you for AP. So you have to think of them in combination when your teachers are not thinking that way when they enter your recommendations. Think about what you're taking right now. Do you have so much free time on your hands that you don't know what to do with yourself? Or are you stretched so thin that you have no time to even think or have a little bit of fun in your life? Think about your life outside of school. What is the demand on your time with sports, extracurriculars, clubs? Maybe you play sports outside of Chattahoochee. Maybe it's a club league. Do you volunteer? Do you have a part-time job? Are you shadowing or interning somewhere? Are you involved in a religious organization? Do you have family responsibilities? We have plenty of kids here who, because their parents work long hours, or it's a single parent family. Maybe the high school student is responsible for going home and making sure the younger kids are fed and bathed and get their homework done. Those are all things that should factor in to a family's decision or a student's decision on what they take the next year. One of the biggest questions, or one of the most common questions I ask students, how much sleep are you getting each night? If you tell me you're going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're taking 3 AP classes, by no means am I going to say, yes, we should ramp up next year. You need at least 8 hours. The teenage bodies are growing, your brains are growing, your body's changing. You need more sleep than you even think you do. So we want to make sure that students are planning for what is achievable for you, classes that are manageable. We don't want any student, compromising their physical health, their mental health, their stress level, their GPA. Okay. So a couple of questions I saw earlier in the chat did ask about your GPA, so we're going to explain it as best we can. Your GPA in high school is cumulative. Every single semester of all grades earned, they all add together. So your first semester of 9th grade, that's the foundation of your GPA. Second semester of 9th grade, that adds to your GPA, and then so on and so forth. So when if a student is applying to college, usually in first semester of 12th grade, colleges are going to see your cumulative GPA from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade all combined. Colleges do like to see trends. So, if a student has maybe not tried as hard as they could, or maybe slacked off a little bit in 9th grade, the colleges will see, if you start working harder and your grades improve, they will see that upward trend. But I will share with you, from all of our kids that we've talked about, that we've talked to over the years, and especially our seniors who are graduating every year, every senior fills out an exit survey, basically telling us about their time in high school, their thoughts, what they wish they had known. The most common thing that students share with us is that they wish they had taken their classes and grades more seriously in 9th grade and in 10th grade, because those are the foundational years of your GPA. So there's a Fulton County numeric average. It's on a 100-point scale. The HOPE GPA, and I believe there were some questions about HOPE earlier in the chat as well. HOPE is the state scholarship. Students have to have a 3.0 graduating out of high school. We'll go over the details about HOPE in a little bit, but this is just one of the explanations of the differences in the GPA. Your 100-point scale GPA on your transcript that you see in Infinite Campus, that is the average of all of your grades cumulatively from high school altogether. For Hope, only your academic core courses and those taken in high school, and then any academic electives, along with a couple career tech classes. So Fulton County numeric average, literally every single grade you've ever taken, every single class you've ever taken, including weight training, personal fitness, health, general PE, rec games, anything along those lines. Hope GPA is only English, math, science, social studies, world language, academic electives, so anything with a course number that starts with the English, math, science, social studies, world language classes, and then some career tech classes. So the second year of healthcare, which is essentials, the AP Comp Sci classes. Your numeric average on your transcript that you see in Infinite Campus is weighted. So any passing grade you've earned in honors, AP, or dual enrollment courses, you get 7 additional points. Hope is, I like to call it reweighted. So your honors points are removed before the base grade is converted to the 4.0 scale. And then once that base grade is on the 4.0 scale, an additional 5.5 quality points are added to AP and dual enrollment courses only up to a max of 4.0. Meaning if you earn an A in an AP course, you don't get a 4.5 added into your Hope GPA. It's a maximum of 4.0. Your Fulton County GPA is calculated by Fulton County Schools. Hope GPA is solely calculated by Georgia Student Finance Commission. The final calculation is done after you graduate from high school, but students can see their Hope Progress GPA. It's usually updated about a month and a half after the end of each semester. So since we're sitting on January 25th today, the county hasn't yet uploaded students' transcripts from first semester. So if a current 12th grader were to log in to Georgia Futures to see their Hope Progress GPA, they're not going to see their fall 2023 grades posted just yet. Okay, unweighted versus weighted grades. Fulton County transcript includes weighted grades. That's our default way of producing a transcript to go anywhere. The honors points are included in the grade that you see for any honors, AP, or dual enrollment classes, but you do have to pass the class. So you can't get a 63, hope that you're going to get the 7 points, and then get a passing grade of 70. So there are, there's a number of reasons a student would choose an honors, AP, or dual enrollment class. Maybe you're choosing some honors classes because you want to be prepared for AP or dual enrollment classes in the future. Maybe you want to challenge yourself. Maybe, like we said before, we encourage students to take more difficult courses in the areas of strength and in their areas of interest. Those, if you're strong in a subject and you're interested in a subject, that class is automatically just going to feel easier to you. And then, of course, some students choose AP and dual enrollment classes because they want to be able to enter their first year of college with some credits already earned. Colleges do not necessarily remove honors points from grades before they're calculating a student's GPA for admission. Many don't, some do though. So we always advise students and parents to do their research. If there are certain colleges you're aiming for, then definitely check with that college. If you can't find it written out on their admissions website, you can always email their admissions office and ask for that specifics. Tell me how you calculate grades for sorry, let me say that again. Tell me how you calculate a student's GPA for admissions. Okay, we touched on the Hope Scholarship in Zell Miller. Hope pays for, just for this current year, it's paying for 100% of last year's cost of attendance, tuition only. So it's not your room and board, it's not your meal plan, it's not your books, it's not your dorm. Zell Miller pays for 100% of this year's cost of attendance. I know one of the common questions that we've heard is, people are hearing that Hope is paying for 100% of tuition. Like I said, it's only last year's cost of attendance in Georgia, and it was only written into the legislation for this current school year. So to be seen whether it's going to stay or not. Generally, for both Hope and Zell Miller, students have to meet these basic qualifications: certain citizenship requirements, legal resident of Georgia, graduate from eligible high school. Male students have to register with the Selective Service to receive federal funds, and then 4 units of rigor. Rigor is a term used in a lot of different ways, and in all those different ways, it can mean a lot of different things. for Hope and Zell Miller purposes, there's a very specific list of quote rigor classes that students must take 4 of in order to earn Hope or Zell Miller. We've designed our curriculum here, or sorry, not our curriculum. We've designed our course offerings here so that it is pretty easy for a student to meet those 4 units of rigor. So 1 credit of advanced algebra, that's just the new title for on-level algebra 2. 1 credit of AMDM, that's our on-level senior math. 1 credit of physics. Every student who takes all 4 of their sciences here will take physics. And then 1 credit of just the second year of world language. All of that meets the Hope rigor requirements. Rigor for Hope does not necessarily mean honors or AP or dual enrollment. So when you see Hope rigor, please do not feel like you have to take on honors or AP or dual enrollment classes if you do not think you or your student are ready. GPAs are not rounded up. So you will see on the next slide, a 2.9999 does not mean you have a 3.0 Hope GPA. The Hope Award does vary for each college in Georgia, and it's public schools in Georgia. Private schools do have partial payout. And then to maintain Hope Scholarship, you have to keep a 3.0 GPA through college at different checkpoints. Zell Miller scholarship requirements, the basic requirements are the same, the citizenship, graduating from an eligible high school, but the GPA is different. So you either graduate as the Val or Sal from high school, but that's only 2 students. So the rest of the students can earn it by finishing high school with a 3.7 GPA, and there's minimum test scores. So it's either a 1200 combined score on the SAT or a 26 composite on the ACT. And that's not a super score. Those test scores have to be earned in a single administration and before your graduation date. I covered earlier about the difference in what Zell Miller and Hope pays out. If it goes back to the previous, not what's written in the legislation for this current school year, which is students who are in college in the 2023-24 school year, Zell Miller would cover 100% of the standard tuition charges. Hope has been paying, I think, 80 to 85%. So while it's not 100%, 80 to 85% is a lot more than 0%. And then the same checkpoints apply in college. Zell Miller students have to maintain a 3.3. And then if they fall below a 3.3, then they can still maintain Hope if they have a 3.0. I'm going to just quickly touch on the Hope Zell Miller grants. This is for students seeking, technical college, certification, or maybe associate's degrees. There is not a minimum GPA required to graduate from high school. You do not even have to be full-time enrolled. Hope grant, the award amount covers a portion of the tuition. You have to maintain a 2.0. Zell Miller grant, the award covers the whole tuition rate, and then you have to maintain a 3.5 GPA. And then all the different fields on the right side, those are the fields in which the Hope and Zell Miller grants apply. Okay. So the next steps that we want you to take as 9th and 10th graders, and also parents or guardians of 9th and 10th graders, sit down and have a family chat about what classes make the most sense for next year's schedule. These are some things to do that can help you. Download your transcript from Infinite Campus. If you go in either the student or the parent version of Infinite Campus, on the left, click on the Documents tab, and then click on your transcript. It will actually print with your weighted and unweighted grades. But just know that anytime we run a transcript here, it defaults to the weighted. Look at the progression of your grades as well as your cumulative GPA. Cumulative GPA should be close to the top left-hand corner, and that's on the 100-point scale. Look at the progression of your grades and the progression of the difficulty of your courses. See if your grades have increased throughout high school, each semester by semester. See if they've decreased for any reason. Really, truly think about how much time you're currently spending on homework and studying, and are you having to do, if you're relying on recovery, basically every single test for an AP class, maybe we don't need to take an AP class in that subject area next school year. But if you were just killing it and earning amazing grades on, tests and all your assignments and quizzes and everything in a class, and you're really not studying that much, maybe that's the subject area that you do look at an honors or an AP class in next year. And then also, reminder, we encourage a gradual increase in rigor. So if you did great in one AP class this year, consider taking 2 next year. I know we've referenced AP and honors and dual enrollment classes a lot in this presentation. I want everyone to know that AP, honors, and dual enrollment classes are not required to go to college in general. So many colleges, it's literally just your GPA and your test scores that matter. And even some colleges, it's just your GPA. We talk about honors and AP and dual enrollment classes a lot because we get those questions a lot, not because we're trying to force rigor or force increase in rigor on anyone. Really, your GPA is the most important thing that colleges are generally going to look at when you're coming out of high school. And then think of them as hurdles. I like that explanation from I can't remember who that was a couple years ago that came to talk to our students. Think of them as hurdles. You get over one hurdle, then the next one is considered. Earn a solid GPA. If you have a really good GPA, then maybe if we're applying to a college that does highly recommend a certain number of AP or dual enrollment classes, then we get to that next hurdle. If you can't get over that first hurdle, which is, typically the GPA, then they're not even going to care how many AP classes you've taken. But that being said, again, so many awesome colleges, so many great colleges, you never have to take honors, you never have to take AP, you never have to take dual enrollment, and you're going to get in just fine. Awesome colleges in Georgia, awesome colleges outside of Georgia. So again, this is a very individualized conversation that we want parents and guardians to have with their students. And the counselors are always happy to weigh in as well. Like Ms. Turner said, after the student individual meetings happen, they will finish on February 26th. We will have a week or so open for parents to book quick scheduling meetings with us if they have any follow-up questions. So we will have the links available. Yeah, maybe I would say early to mid-February. Keep an eye on your email inboxes for either a Hooch Happenings email blast or a Naviance email blast sent from the counseling office. The way that we schedule these quick meetings with parents to discuss scheduling questions for next school year, each of the counselors has an electronic scheduling system where you click on the link and you're taken to a calendar where you can pick the day and the time that works best for your schedule and your student's schedule. And then you receive an automated email confirmation. And then after that, the counselor will follow up and send you a Teams link. All the parents will be joining through Teams just because they're quick meetings, and we don't want to take you away from your busy schedules and your work and all that kind of stuff. Students will join with the counselor in the counseling office, and then the parent will join on Teams. So it is fully up to you what day and time you choose once we get those scheduling links out. And then just a last piece. Of course, these are hyperlinks, so you will be able to click on them once we publish this presentation on the counseling website. These are just links to past presentations we've done that go a little bit more in depth on some of these topics. So the GPA explained, the Hope and Zell Miller Scholarship and Grants, college search process, career exploration, and then just a general Q&A with counselors. So yes, we're going to open it up for questions, and if I see a hand raised, then I will unmute that particular person and allow them to ask their question verbally. If you would rather ask questions in the chat, that is fine as well. Okay, let me see. Okay, Jennifer, it looks like you have your hand raised. Are you able to ask your question verbally? Like that's choosing to. So I'm not sure if, okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to disable this one again. Okay, looks like she put her hand down.
Okay.
And then Shomri Kaidar Hefetz, I'm gonna, hopefully I pronounced that remotely correctly. I'm gonna unmute you. Shomri, are you able to ask your question verbally? Okay, I'm not sure if it's working.
Oh, she's saying her mic's not working, or his mic isn't working.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's totally fine. Next hand I see raised is Kim. I'm gonna unmute you. Okay, go ahead, Kim. Okay, maybe this is just not working. Why don't we just continue asking questions typed out in the chat?
Yeah, if anybody wants to ask a question in the chat, we can read it aloud and answer verbally, because it's a lot faster to answer
Yes.
quickly rather than typing it. One of the questions that came up was, can parents come to the one-on-one meetings with the student? And no, those are only for students. We have very, very quick turnaround times to get every class in and out. It's a very tight schedule to see every student in the building within a 2-week period. So that's why we open up a time at the end of March, or no, at the end, well, it's like usually maybe the last week of February, first week of March, to have parents that can schedule a quick meeting with us about last minute questions, or if something wasn't answered about your own student situation or whatever.
Okay, I'm just gonna verbally answer some of the questions that are coming up in the chat. It probably would be easier just to verbally answer them.
Yeah.
Okay, first question I saw in the chat earlier, there was a question, can you take an 8th course online during the school year? Okay, so the thumbs up to that question, that was just the counselors. That was the way the counselors was indicating, the counselors were indicating who was answer the question. The answer is no. No student can pay to take an 8th course online during the school year. The only exception to that is a current senior who literally, there's no other way for them to graduate on time other than pay for an additional class. Any student is welcome to pay to take up to 2 total credits in the summer. However, I think I answered earlier in the chat, that can be, that's an individual decision. A lot of students will pay to take an extra, to get ahead in math in the summer. But then historically, the data that I pull every year shows that the majority of students, even though they might do okay in the summer class, their foundation for future classes is definitely weaker. So they typically end up with lower grades in the future. So anytime a student wants to pay to take an extra course, it can be done in the summer, just not during the school year.
All the questions about dual enrollment really need to happen next Thursday at 5:30. I will be hosting, I'm the dual enrollment coordinator, and I will be hosting a dual enrollment information night. It is 5:30, and it is on Teams as well. So same time, same place. See you next week for dual enrollment.
Okay.
And if you want to get a jump on information about dual enrollment, all of the information on the Weebly is correct. I've posted that link a couple of times. It is chattahoocheede.weebly.com, and that has been updated as much as I can update it at this point. The interest form is available, and all the step-by-step instructions. No paperwork is given on the Weebly. Everything is done through Teams, and I will cover all of that next week.
Okay, so all the questions in the chat that are about dual enrollment, we're going to defer those to, you need to go to the dual enrollment meeting. That's next Thursday. So
it's a beast. Dual enrollment is a beast a little bit because it's so in depth, and it could take another 2 hours to explain it. So let's just defer to next week. Yes.
Yep. Okay, a student looks like is asking, they have tag in their quote 8th period. Is it possible to take any virtual classes through Fulton Virtual in that 8th period? It is not. Any student that's in tag has it listed as their quote 8th period, but that's not an actual period in the day. That's just a placeholder for the tag indicator to show up on your transcript.
And for Ms. Wild to be able to see your
Yes.
schedule and check in on you and invite you to stuff and all of that. It really, truly is just an indicator. Just like coaches, if you're on the baseball team, then they have an indicator also at the end of the school day for coaches to be able to check your grades and, you know, make sure you're aware of everything. So that's not an actual class period.
Yeah. Looks like a parent is asking, can we please have this information in an email? This is being recorded. So the video, the link to the recorded video will be posted on the counseling website within a couple days, along with the PowerPoint presentation that we've gone through. Are there any financial requirements for Hope or Zell Miller scholarships or grants? No financial requirement at all. Does not matter what the family makes as a whole. Doesn't matter if you make $0 or $1 million. No requirement. Parent looks like is asking, can students get some time before they decide to select AP classes? So yes, their teachers or current teachers are making recommendations for next year's classes in that subject based on this year's grades. That's just a recommendation. It's not something your student has to take. Your student and their school counselor will talk individually in the meetings that will happen through English classes. And but that's not, you know, that's not set in stone. You are welcome to book one of those quick scheduling meetings with your student's school counselor once those come out. And then at that meeting, once the scheduling meetings are finished with parents, that is actually going to be the kind of the end date for any scheduling changes for next school year. The next time it will be able to be changed is once school year starts in August. Okay, yep, if a student does not have a 3.0 at the end of high school, if a student graduates from high school without a 3.0, once you've earned 30 credit hours, and that's about what a student takes in 1 full year of college, so 2 semesters, if the student has a 3.0 or more, then they can apply to Hope while they are in college. Explain what the removing of 7 points for honors classes for Hope means. So for Hope GPA calculation, all honors, AP, and dual enrollment classes, their 7 points are removed, and the base grade is converted to the 4.0 scale. Then for only AP and dual enrollment classes, an extra 0.5 is added to the base grade points up to a maximum of 4.0. Physics is offered in the summer, but again, summer classes, they're very fast paced. A year-long class in the summer, you're looking at 6 hours a day spending at a computer for 6 weeks. It's also $450. Students
Not recommended to do physics. I would not do physics online.
There's not a, I agree. Looks like a parent is asking, how do kids utilize the 8th period? No one truly actually has an 8th period. Our 7th period ends at 3:30, and that's when school lets out. 8th quote period in a student's schedule is just a placeholder for different indicators. 529 state plan has no effect on Hope and Zell Miller. Does not matter what investments you have, does not matter what savings plan you have. Hope and Zell Miller available to anyone solely based on those initial qualifications, and then of course their GPA and test scores for Zell Miller. Other scholarships are available. Naviance is the best place to look. All students have access to Naviance through ClassLink. We also encourage students and parents both to follow the Chattahoochee Counseling Twitter account and our Facebook account. And then, of course, probably the largest pool of money is going to be available from each individual college's financial aid office. Students can find their PSAT scores. So because this year was the first year that all students took the PSAT electronically, every single student created their own account using their own email address. So your student needs to log into their own account. If they don't remember the password, then they can do the forgot password link. Is there a time limit for applying to scholarships? Most scholarships are going to have deadlines that students have to submit certain documents by. Hope
I
and Zell
also
Miller.
want to say, hold on, about
Yeah.
applying for a scholarship. The vast majority of scholarships you do not even apply for until senior year. So y'all are 9th and 10th graders. That's something that we would worry about a little bit later.
Hope and Zell Miller scholarships are only applicable for colleges in Georgia, not outside at all. AP are pre-calculus and Spanish 3 considered hard courses for the summer? Yes. Now, my caveat to that, and I don't know if other counselors listening would agree to this, I'm a little bit more open to a student taking a summer course if it's going to be their terminal course. So if you want to take Spanish 3 to be your 3rd year of world language and not continue, I'm more open to that than a student taking a math class in the summer, because that math class is going to be foundational for the future. Every year I pull data on the students who take summer classes for math, and of the 30 to 35 that typically take it, usually only 5 continue to have strong A's in future classes. So it does not set you up for a good foundation for any future math classes. Okay, where can I find, okay. Sounds like this person is asking for our course catalog. If you go on the Chattahoochee website at the top, hover over academics and then click on CHS academics. That should take you to the PDF of the full course catalog. What are the options for social studies other than AP Gov, AP US History for 9th and 10th graders? So 9th graders, like students who are in 9th grade, can take AP Gov and AP Human Geography for AP Social Studies courses. 10th grade, they can take AP World History or AP Human Geography. 11th grade, students can take AP US History, AP Human Geography, AP Psych, AP Euro. Typically, the further a student gets in high school, the more options open up. Honors courses do not exist in the summer, so the French 2 honors will not exist. French 2 on level would exist, but if a student is planning on going on to French 3, I would not advise anything in the summer for a future course in that same subject area. I'm going to give you the same answer for taking Spanish 2 in the summer. If a student has any plans of going on to Spanish 3, Spanish 2 in the summer is not going to be a good foundation. The PSAT, what it serves as is practice. So it gives a student, just kind of a baseline for what they could possibly score on the SAT if they were to take it, at that same time. It could be predictive of future SAT scores, but of course, a student took that in October of 2023. Every student has naturally learned more information since then. So it's giving you a baseline, but it doesn't necessarily count for, colleges are not asking for PSAT scores. They're asking for SAT scores and ACT scores. The benefit of TAG students. So students in TAG can participate in TAG internships. They can participate in directed studies classes. However, students who are not categorized in TAG, they still have access to internships, to directed studies classes. I think Ms. Chilson can probably speak to this as well, just having, younger kids. Once you get into high school, TAG, the majority of options or opportunities offered through TAG are also offered through other avenues as well. Is AP Gov not being offered in 10th grade? AP Gov is only a 9th grade class. And then instead of AP World in sophomore and AP US in junior, could you dual enroll both in junior year? No. So as we shared previously in our presentation, if you don't want to take the standard class for a certain grade level, you have to plan ahead. So if a student does not want to take world history in 10th grade, they have to pay to take it in the summer between 9th and 10th grade. We do not delay graduation requirements like that. When is the SAT and ACT? Generally, we recommend students take either the SAT or ACT in 11th grade. We usually want students to have taken at least one test date, probably by like mid to late spring of 11th grade. If a student is a little bit more advanced in English and in math or in math, maybe in fall of 11th grade. But please do not feel pressured to to force your 9th or 10th grader into taking the SAT in 9th or 10th grade. It really does not need to be taken any earlier than that. The only reason a student in 10th grade might want to take the SAT or ACT is if they want to use that score to qualify for dual enrollment. But if you go to Ms. Chilson's awesome presentation next Thursday night, you'll be able
You
to
were
learn.
too kind. You're too kind.
I try. You're really good at your job, Ms. Chilson, and as a former dual enrollment coordinator, I think we're a really
I
good team.
know. A lot of
You'll
us.
find out there's alternate ways to qualify for dual enrollment, not just the SAT or ACT. So in the portal, if I have a parent that's referencing 9th grade report cards in past academic years, just pull up your student's transcript. It's under the documents tab. AP or dual enrollment, which is more recommended in 12th grade. That's a very individual decision. All kind of depends on what the goal is and what colleges that you think your student might be looking at. Some colleges want to see AP. The Ivies, the elite privates, they tend to want to see more AP, but then other colleges seem to be more open to both. I would recommend to this parent that you speak to your student school counselor just to kind of get a little bit more in the nitty gritty of the subjects that your student is strong in and which, dual enrollment or AP you're considering for the different subjects. If a student took American Gov in 9th grade, can they take AP Gov in 10th if there is room? I don't even know how to answer that question. I don't think we've ever had a 10th grader take AP Gov. If a student took on-level American Gov in 9th grade.
The only upperclassmen that are going to take AP Gov is an incoming transfer that missed it. Yes. For an academic graduation requirement reason. Anybody that chose to do an elective this year that, missed taking Gov because of a choice they made, then you need to either do it over the summer or you need to talk to your counselor during the one-on-one about another possible option, possibly doing dual enrollment later in your high school career. But you kind of missed your opportunity to do the AP Gov.
Yeah. Can we take IDT online in the summer and AP Comp Sci in the school year? Because that's kind of like a roundabout option. If a student wants to take AP Computer Science Principles in the school year and they're going into either 10th or 11th grade, which all of you parents should have a rising 10th grader or a rising 11th grader. I would encourage that family, that student, to look at the embedded AP Comp Sci Principles / Intro to Digital Technology course. If you go to the main Chattahoochee website, scroll down and look at the top link in the middle column, that's our scheduling kind of hub for next school year.
I posted that link a little bit earlier.
Perfect. So yes, that's what I would recommend.
I'll see if I can go back and pin it too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, if a student has not yet taken Intro to Software Technology, which is the new title for IDT, but they do want to be able to take AP Comp Sci Principles next year, applying for that embedded course is the best option. And if for some reason there's not a quote application for that link, application link for that course, then your student just needs to share that information with their school counselor when we meet individually with them, and then we can put in the course for that. How many credits or subjects can students take over the summer? All students, no matter what grade level they are currently in or rising to, the maximum is 2.0 credits, which is 2-year-long classes. Students taking AP Human Geography in 9th grade haven't done Gov yet. This is where we're a little bit flexible. So if a student chose to take AP Human Geography and did not take American Government, that is the one that, because there's just so much wiggle room between 8th and 9th grade, and we want to, kind of get you into the high school swing of things and everything, that's where we're a little bit more flexible. Some students in that situation might choose to take on-level Gov over the summer. Some students might choose to wait a little bit later in high school and maybe even take the dual enrollment version. Okay, so for the parent who's trying to find the past semester grades, in Infinite Campus, go to the Documents tab and then click on Transcript. So that's the completely cumulative record of all grades and credits earned. then last question at this point, does AP Human Geography satisfy the 10th Social Studies requirement? It does not. There are a number of academic electives offered in social studies. AP Human Geography is one, AP European History, AP Psychology. Those are all academic electives. The AP class that satisfies the 10th grade social studies requirement is AP World History only. Can the school change a teacher because students don't understand what the teacher is teaching? For that, I would recommend that you reach out to your student's teacher, ask to meet with them individually. You are welcome to request that their department chair be in that meeting as well. And I would recommend you you explore your concerns that way. Okay, students asking, if I enter an AP next year and it is too difficult, can I drop down, assuming I didn't waive in? There is a limited amount of time in which students can make schedule changes. If you come to your counselor within the first, 2 weeks of school and say, I want to drop out of this AP into an on-level or into an honors, depending on what subject, that's fine, as long as you didn't waive in.
But please know, hold on, but please know that space is limited at that point, that some classes may be full, that the entire schedule may get rearranged. Like, there's a lot of caveats that come with changing a schedule once the year has begun. And after those first 10 days, it's nearly impossible to change a schedule.
And even if there are spots available, it's very likely not going to be in the period that you currently have your AP class in. So that one change could force a change in every single one of your other classes. So this is why we want students and parents to think very seriously about their courses for next year. General question, would you recommend taking 2 social studies APs? I don't know if that question is meaning taking them at the same time, taking them through all of high school together. Again, very individual decision. I would recommend you speak to your student school counselor about that. Also, their current social studies teacher will make recommendations for next school year's class based on your students' current class that they're in, the level that they're in, and the grade that they're earning. Parent just pulled the admission requirements for a school that included 1 lab. Does the biology, chemistry, or physics include a lab credit? So our answer to that, even though we don't have a separate lab credit or grade posted on a transcript, every single one of our science classes, literally every single one, is considered a quote lab science. AP research cannot replace 11th grade English. 11th grade English is only on-level American Lit, honors 11th American Lit, or AP Lang. So all of those, the on-level, the honors, and the AP all include American literature. That is a very specific high school graduation requirement in Georgia. AP research does not cover that. AP research is an academic elective. So for social studies, can a student achieve 3 credits without taking AP classes? Yes, every single high school class, no matter what level it is, on-level, honors, AP, every single one of them earns the same number of credits per semester. And then last question at this point, can a student take 5 APs in 11th grade? Again, a very individualized question. All depends on the student, the current classes that they're in, the grades that they're earning. Are we sleeping at night? Are we too stressed out?
Have you met the prerequisites for the classes?
Have you met the prerequisites for the classes? All that kind of stuff. So
there's so many layers to this.
That's a really, really individualized question. I would strongly recommend you speak to your student's school counselor about that. And then also just take all of the advice that we've given so far, look back and see what they've taken in the past. If that student is not taking 4 APs now, I don't know if I would recommend any student go up to 5. That's a huge, huge, huge load. Does 10th Lit honors commit a student to 11th Lit honors or AP Lang? Nothing from one year commits a student to something the following year. This is why we do scheduling on a year-to-year basis.
It's also why I write everything in pencil, because there's so much change. Students change, their interests change. every year is really on its own merit, and you just want to look at one year to the next. Do your absolute best every year and then reevaluate at the end of the year to see how you could do things differently than the next year.
Yep. And then if I take US history in the summer, will you have to come in person to take the EOC for it? So students who are registered to take US history in the summer through either Fulton Virtual or Georgia Virtual, they are expected to show up to the summer school site to take the EOC. If you are out of town, out of the country on that date or during that time, then you would take the first administration of the EOCs during the school year, which is maybe late August. If a student chooses dual enrollment US history in the summer, that is the one course that typically requires an EOC, but if it's taken through dual enrollment, that is the one class you are actually exempt from the EOC. And does Hope look for the overall average GPA or look at each course GPA? Hope is anytime you're seeing GPA, it's all an average of every single course up to that point. Okay, it looks like the questions are kind of slowing down. Unless we have any, just one or two last questions, then I think we'd like to look at wrapping up. What are the most doable classes in the summer? Generally, I would say a lot of students will take health, personal fitness, maybe a student who took AP Human Geography in 9th grade and wants to get Gov out of the way. A semester class is a lot more doable in the summer than a year-long class. And then if you're looking at a year-long class, I don't know, Ms. Chilson and Ms. Turner, if y'all would agree, but anything that's not a foundational course for a future year. So that example before, if a student has done through Spanish 2, they want to get their 3rd credit out of the way, but don't have plans on going forward, then sure, go for Spanish 3. But just know you're covering 36 weeks of material in just 6 weeks time. So every week that you're doing in the summer is the same as 6 weeks of material in the school year. You're spending 6 hours a day sitting in front of a computer during your summer. Most kids don't want to do that. And on top of that, it's $450. Dual enrollment classes are available in the summer for students who are rising 11th graders and rising 12th graders. Co-requisites and prerequisites. Co-requisites have to be taken at the same time. So a good example of that is in college, if you're taking Chemistry 1, you probably also have to take Chemistry 1 lab. That's a co-requisite. Prerequisite might be in college, you have to take, say, pre-calculus before you take Chemistry 1. If a student has really high grades, is jumping from 0, okay, you already answered that. That is a big, big jump, yes. Options for summer for rising sophomores. That information will be shared, will be published by the county typically early March. And as soon as it's published, we'll be sending email blasts about all the summer registration information. Okay.
And also, hold on.
Yes,
one more thing. So every other Friday, Dr. Todd sends out the Hooch Happenings newsletter. Every week we post important information in the newsletter that goes out, and Ms. Blunt does an awesome job of making sure we haven't missed anything. So
thank you.
That is a great resource to look at upcoming dates and presentations and where to find stuff and links and all of that. So utilize all your resources, including the counseling webpage or the dual enrollment Weebly. There's lots of resources out there. The Georgia Futures website is a great resource as well for all things GPA and dual enrollment, all kinds of things. So lots of available things. And of course, these presentations that are on your screen have already been pre-recorded. And good job, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Y'all have a good rest of the night, and we will see all of your students in just a couple weeks in their individual meetings.
And don't forget to stop the recording.
Thank you. Why? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Here we go. Look at that. I found it. Okay, bye, y'all.
Bye.